Good afternoon, Austin. How you doing, buddy?
Good, Dad. How are you?
Good. We got one of my favorite guys today. It's going to be a great podcast for our listeners. Today, our journey takes us inside the heart and mind of one of my former coaches and one of college football's top defensive coaches, recruiters, and leader of men. His pedigree speaks for itself. Alabama captain, author of The Bama Way, NFL player, mentor of 3 first-round draft picks, national championship coach, poet, and so much more. But this is a story about his love for his family, his passion for his players, and a commitment to his faith. My name is Ken Karcher, and I'll be your host. And alongside me today is my son, Austin Karcher. And we would like to welcome Todd Bates as our guest to Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive one story at a time. Welcome, Coach Bates.
Man, great to be on, man. Appreciate you, man. And that welcome was something else, man. I appreciate everything.
Well, I meant it. It comes from my heart. So, well, Coach, we wanted to start when you were just a little kid growing up in the Bates house. And before you get into sharing a lot, what would be one word that would have described your childhood?
Man, I would say family. Family was everything. And, you know, we had some sacrifices being made when I first came into this world. You know, I come from a big family. First of all, I have 6 siblings, and
Wow.
That's 3 older brothers, 1 older sister, and then 2 younger sisters. And you know, for being the you know, one too many mouths to feed. By the time I came along, I stayed with my grandmother, and she raised me up until I was 10. So I learned a lot from her, her work ethic, her values. I was at church 3 days a week, and that's Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. We were there, and man, I'll never forget this, man. She always instilled in me the importance of foundation with your relationship with the Lord. And man, when she passed away when I was 10 years old, I got to see, you know, some of the fruits of her labor as the mayor of our city. Named our street name after her, and it's still Bates Drive to this day. And it was the way that she carried herself, the way she cared for others, the way she served her community, and the way she loved her family, man. She really left a legacy. And I told her, you know, on her deathbed, I said, because she didn't want me to play football, believe it or not.
Wow.
She was dead set that I would get hurt, and I was the biggest cat out there. And I told her, I told her on her deathbed, I said, Momo, I really want to play. I said, I know you don't want me to. I won't if you don't want me to. I said, but it's in me to do. I said, and I was rambling and going on. And she said, baby, you can play. And I said, from that moment on, I told her I was going to dedicate whatever career I had to her as a player. And I attribute that, you know, my relationship with the Lord and me fighting through for her and trying to honor her name and honor everything she taught me, to me being able to make it to the NFL for a hot cup of coffee. And man, I'm forever grateful. I have her name tattooed on my arm. It's the only tattoo that I got that wasn't a mistake. And so she is still to this day, my oldest daughter, Angel, her middle name is after Maylene Bates.
Mm.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
How did your siblings influence your life growing up, Todd?
Man, they really, you know, it's a very athletic family, very competitive family. You know, going home, and if mom and dad had to go to work, it's fixing to be some wrestling matches around the house. We're gonna break a thing or two, and somebody's gonna get in trouble. Normally, it's me, the baby boy. Todd did it. a lot of my brothers, but I got to see what strong work ethic looked like. You know, my oldest brother, he played at TSU, where Eddie George is the head coach. He played at Tennessee State, and he had a neck injury. My brother right up under him was a boxer, and my brother right up under him, Antoine, he was a basketball player. And my baby sister, she actually played college basketball, and she's about 6'3". and she's got a daughter right now that's going to be a really good ball player. And then my sister, who's right up under me, she was a softball player, and my mom was a softball player and a tomboy. So we all get it from my dad and her. And but it was a very competitive family, man. And I just attribute coming up in that environment where you had to live up to the family name, and go out and do your best. My dad, he would always make us all. If we started something, we were going to finish it, and he would hold us accountable. We had chores that, man, we couldn't leave the house. We had to vacuum the house every day before we left to go to school. He was very like military minded, and he wasn't in the military, but he had us on a structure, and we had chores before we go to bed every night, and bedtime was 9 p.m. So he ran a tight ship, and he didn't leave much room for us to get into trouble and mischief. He just wanted to have us in structure, man. And I tell you what, going all the way back to my little league football days, I just knew with that black truck, he drove a black Silverado. I knew it was at practice every day. It was at every game because that joker was cheap. He wasn't finna pay to get in the game. And he was parked up by the tank in Heflin. I knew exactly where his truck was parked. And but he was there every game, man. And it taught me to be there to support your kids. And it matters. It does matter, man. And so that environment that I grew up in, man, and the hard work. I mean, I had a grass cutting business ever since I was 10 years old, to where, I didn't want to be a burden on my family. I knew that I'd stay with my grandmother up until I was 10 because I was one too many miles to feed. So I started I asked my grandmother for her lawnmower, and I kept her yard cut. And then I had like 25 other yards that I cut up until I was 17 before I went to Alabama. And I also worked at Taco Bell. And that's one thing that my dad, man, they always instilled in us hard work. We had all these chores to do, and he was all about earning it. He wasn't going to just give us anything. He wanted us to know the value of a dollar. He wanted us to know value of time. Like, man, I can just remember, like, out of season, because I didn't play a spring sport other than, we had spring training for football, but, that would be like 10 days. So other than that, when we came home, we'd all be in a hurry to go play somewhere. We want to go play basketball or play backyard tackle football. And my dad would have a bed full of string beans on his back of his truck, or he'd have a bed full of corn that we shook. And he's like, y'all ain't going nowhere till you do this. And so you can sit there and complain about it and waste the daylight that you do have, or you can roll your sleeves up and get to work, get the job done. You make it over to the playground by 4 o'clock, because it would take about a good hour and a half from the time you got home to get that stuff done. But it made us keep the main thing the main thing. You're going to, I'm going to provide for the family. I'm going to cook for the family, but you're going to contribute to the family. And so I'm very grateful for those lessons.
Yeah. Was there a memorable conversation that maybe you had with your dad that you look back and you remember?
It's so many. Like my dad, he was a special man. I remember, like, this is my senior year in high school. I'm gonna tell you about. Okay. And my dad had 7 back surgeries, so he was disabled from the time I was 10 years old. So if it came to traveling somewhere more than an hour and a half or 2 hours, he couldn't do it physically. Yeah. And so that played a part in my decision, but I wasn't thinking the right way whenever I was going through the process. I went to North Carolina State and on an official visit, and I had a blast. I really gelled with those guys. They had some guys from Alabama on that team. They had Phillip Rivers. They had Jericho Cotry. They had a couple other guys, and I really gelled well with them, and it felt like home. But my dad, I had nobody there, and I went off just emotion and made a decision and committed. And so my dad is picking me up from the Atlanta airport, and he's like, tell me all about it. He doesn't have a clue, I didn't have a cell phone back then. I couldn't text him and tell him what I'd done. So I get in the car. I'm all happy-go-lucky. And I said, man, it went great. I said, I committed. And I thought he was going to celebrate me. He's like, you did what? He said, without talking to me? And I said, yeah. I said, I was looking for the right things that you told me to look for. And he brought back home to me some of the main things that were important to me. As I told you, where that Silverado truck sit every practice, every game. And he brought that up to me. He said, so Todd, he said, I'm not upset with you. He said, but these are decisions that we sit around the table and we pray about before we make a decision. And he said, so he asked me, he said, where is my truck during practices? And I said, man, you parked over there by the tennis court, got a bird's eye view right there. And you can see all my indie drills and you coach me up afterwards. He said, yep, sure do. And he said, what about your games? Where's my truck? I said, you're up by the tank on Friday nights. And he said, where am I on game day, whether it's home or away? I said, you're there. And he said, have I missed anything? And I said, no, sir, you have not. He said, I'm going to have to miss something now. He said, my back won't let me travel more than 2 hours. And he said, man, I'm gonna see about a game every other year. You play Georgia Tech if you go to North Carolina State. And he said, I think I've earned more than that. He said, but it's not my decision. And I thought about that. We had like an hour drive home after he said those words. And I immediately called the coach and I told him, man, I made a mistake. And I said, I told him why, and that I wanted my dad to be able to be there, and that meant the world to me. And I said, man, I'd made a immature mistake, and I apologized to the coach. And man, the coaches, they came to my house after that, so they didn't let me off that easy. They didn't let me off that easy. My dad, we ended up having to sit down with Coach Chuck Amato and Coach Joe Pate. I'll never forget it because I love those coaches. They did a wonderful job recruiting me, and they just were too far away. And but my dad, he really brought that home for me, man. And he had a way of just making me think about things and think things through versus telling me what to do. He wanted me in that decision because he knew I had to be wherever I went. And that's the way it goes for a lot of these young men that, we're blessed to be in the position that we are, having a role in their lives, being that recruiting them, or one day, hopefully my son, I hope to be there every step of the way, just like my dad was.
Well, all I could think of his presence, Dad, as he was talking about his dad. And just how he was constantly, where you knew where he was the whole time. That's awesome. Coach, what was just a favorite childhood memory that you had?
Man, so many. I played running back in Little League, and I was probably I wore number 33 just like Roger Craig. And
okay.
Man, I was, I really paid close attention to Barry Sanders growing up, Roger Craig growing up. Those are my two running backs. And then I paid attention to Lawrence Taylor at defensive end. And not knowing that I would be a defensive end one day, but thinking I would be a running back. And man, my coach, this was my last carry as a running back. I never played running back again after this clip that I'm gonna share with you. All right, so I break in the open. They called 38 sweep. All right, so I'm taking a sweep to the right and I break it, and I'm not getting caught by anybody. I'm pulling away actually, but as I get to about the plus 20, a yellow jacket flies in my helmet and stings me in the chin. And, all I can think of is Coach telling me, protect the ball, at all costs, protect the ball. Well, Coach was so mad at me, I threw that ball down to get that stinger out of my chin. And the other team caught up and recovered the fumble. And that was my last carry, man. I had some good memories, but that's one that I wanted to share. That's a bit of a funny story, because that was my last of the glory days of playing running back.
That was a great story.
Dad, that's like you getting under the center.
Yeah, I have a bee allergy, Todd, and what my son's talking about is after I got stung and almost died as a junior in high school. 3 weeks later, I'm playing. I'm under the center, and a bee went in the ear hole of my helmet. And I'm like you. I got that helmet off right in the middle of the game, so I can relate.
Yes, sir. Oh yeah.
Roger Craig was your hero. That's the first one we've heard of Roger Craig on this podcast, Dad. But that's awesome. So, Coach, what was maybe the role that faith played in your house growing up?
Man, it played a big part in my house. It was the foundational piece, and I always lived by faith is the vehicle, but action is the key, and then a foundation is not to be rested upon, but to be built upon. So I credit my parents and my grandmother for instilling those things to where we got up and we went to church and we went to vocation Bible schools, which my son just finished up going to here, trying to do the same thing. The word says, what you instill it in them and they will not depart from it. And they may fall a little short, they may backslide, they may, but they'll always come back to it if you teach them while they're young. And that's what my parents did. Man, we used to think that, going to choir practice was punishment sometimes because we had a rogue choir and I was actually in the choir. All my siblings were in the choir and we practiced like twice a week. And, if it's just one time a week at night, you feel like, okay, but you haven't, as a teenager, you're thinking, man, all my other friends, they're doing this and that. But you learn about the sacrifices and of being a servant and and serving others. And that's what my parents taught me by always having me in the church, but teaching me. It ended up, I didn't feel like later on in life, like as I got to be 16, 17, I didn't feel like it was punishment anymore. But my early teen years, like 14, 15, I was wondering like, man, I could be over here playing basketball. I could be over here doing this with getting better at my craft. But not knowing at that time as a young man that, hey, that's not the main thing. The main thing is what you're doing right now. And you're learning, how to serve the Lord. You got to use all your gifts to serve the Lord. And, even when you're practicing football now, even when you use that as a tool to serve the Lord, the way that you do it. And, I don't sing in the choir anymore, but I love gospel music to this day. And that's something that I'll listen to from time to time to get me going, get me started in the right direction. But it all comes from, being in that church choir during my high school years.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your high school football experience. And, obviously, I think you mentioned you didn't play any spring sports, but did you play any other sports?
I played basketball. So so in high school basketball, I got a story that nobody would believe. All right. But it ended up being proven true through Dexter Lawrence, one of my players that I had at Clemson. So I told the story when I first got to Clemson. Just in story time, you know how it gets monotonous sometimes when you're in the middle of camp and, they don't want to hear about another X's and O. They start to just crave, Coach, share a little piece of yourself with us. What was it like, in basketball? I hear you talking about all the time how much of a good defensive player you were. And so on my basketball team in high school, my head basketball coach was also my position coach in football. He's my outside linebacker coach and defensive end coach, and so he knew how I ticked. And we were getting ready to play in this Christmas tournament, and we were going to play against the eventual state title team. They ended up winning it all that year, but we had them, and we were watching the game. We had won our game earlier, and we got to watch them and scout them a little bit. And we were a man-to-man, slap the floor, in-your-face type of team. We're going full court press. And my head coach, he's right behind me. He knows how I tick. And he's like, I don't know, Todd. They got this Justin Tuck character over there. He's 6'6", he's 250. And he said, we don't have nobody like that. I'm 6'4", 235 at the time. And so he's like, we don't have nobody 6'6", 250. He said, I don't know. We may have to play zone. oh man, I'm balling, I'm hot, and I'm just wanting a chance to do what we do. And he confirmed it. Like when we got down to the locker room, we played him later that night, and we got down in the locker room, and he said, "We're gonna run 2-1-2, and our rotations have to be on point. We got to take the big fella out of the game. We got nobody that can guard it." And he noticed that I wasn't my normal self. I was being quiet, and because I didn't have anything good to say, I was like, "I'm gonna do what you want me to do, but I really want a shot at this guy." And he said, "Todd, what do you want to do?" He said, "Whatever you say you want to do, is what we're gonna do." He said, "You want to play 2-1-2, or you want to play man?" I said, "I want to play man." And I said, "Okay." He said, "All right, we're playing man." Well, we get in the game, and I hold Justin to 6 points. He was averaging 25 in that tournament, and I held him 6 points, and we beat him by 20 in that game, and they eventually won the state title. So I'm telling all my guys this story, and Dexter Lawrence, they didn't believe me. It was like, "Where's the tape?" That's what they want to see. They want to see tape. They want to see proof. And so Dexter is now a captain with the Giants, and so Tuck is in the Ring of Honor with the Giants.
Absolutely, yeah.
They're walking down the hall, and Justin Tuck says to Dexter Lawrence, he's like, "Man, you played at Clemson, right?" He said, "Man," he said, "your D-line coach, Todd Bates, I played against him in high school in basketball." He said, "And man, he kind of held me down, and they beat us." And so Dexter called me immediately. He said, it's true. All these years, it's true. That's one of the good stories from high school, man. But football wise, man, like I was telling you guys earlier, I worked at Taco Bell, and I would work after my games. And so we finish up the game around 10:30, and I'd go close until like 1:30, and we'd have like college coaches coming through the drive-through at Taco Bell, still recruiting. So it was a very good high school, experience for me. I got my first offer when I was a freshman, and
by who?
Jacksonville State.
Oh, awesome!
Wow.
I ended up coaching there. It was Coach Bobo, who's at Georgia now. He offered me my first offer, and it was actually to play tight end. And then he left Jacksonville State, and he got the job at Georgia, and he offered me there too to play tight end. It was my only offensive offer.
Awesome.
So Todd, who had the greatest influence on your high school career?
Man, I would have to say my dad, and then my high school coach, Coach Michael Short. Coach Short, he's like, when I was a water boy for the teams in the 90s at my high school, he was a defensive coordinator, and he got the job by the time I got up to high school. My seventh grade year was probably his first year as the head coach in the high school. And man, he's a hard-nosed, tough coach who doesn't look the other way, who's going to call you out for things you do wrong, who's going to call you up and teach you, in those moments. And man, I really attribute a lot of being ready for college to the type of man he was. And and he always made time. He took time, he had his own family, and he took time in the spring to take me around places to see, different colleges. Took me to Alabama, took me to Auburn, different places, to give me a chance to see what was out there in the school, and to see the schools that were expressing interest. And he also always just looked out for me and just made sure I handled things the right way, like a second father.
That's awesome.
Well, you sort of told us about why you chose Bama. Your dad's truck could be in a place that he could see you, which is awesome. Take us inside Bama football, Todd. What makes Bama football special? Describe maybe the experience you had, good or bad, and how it's impacted you today.
Man, I tell you what, man, it really prepared me. And I had, I'd say this about it. Alabama is a place where I became a man. It's a place where I met my wife, and it's a place where I got my degree from. And those hard summer two-a-days, because we had the true two-a-days, the ones that'll knock the skin off the bottom of your feet, the blisters. And Man, as I said, that's 2 hours away from my hometown in Heflin, to where my dad got to come see me play. And, but I'll tell you this about it, regardless where a young man goes, he's going to get a little homesick within those first, I don't care if it's 2 hours away. I don't care if it's 20 hours away, because you're in a new environment. And all of a sudden you are not the dude. You're maybe the third string guy. You're starting at the bottom. You're not in the front of the lines to begin with. And in the beginning of that all, especially when I got to camp, like we did sort of like during my freshman year, we did sort of like the NFL does, where you have like the rookie OTAs first, and where we only brought in 3 linebackers, so we were taking all the reps. So we went from getting all the reps and getting used to that for the first 3 days, like, man, trying to, make sure we got enough gas to get through it and get better and everything to, then when you add the vets, getting about 6 reps a day. And what do you do with that? You got to make the most of your 6 reps. But it took me to a place in the beginning to where it made me a little bit more homesick. And I'm lucky that I had a strong mom and strong dad at home when I called and I was doing that whining. And I said, I don't know, and they said, stay your butt right there where you are. You're in the right place. You work through it, you fight through it. Don't call me no more with this. You don't give a listening ear to somebody when they're in the middle of adversity. Adversity isn't something that you try to dodge or get around or go. You got to go through it. You got to go through it. That's what I would say about, especially my freshman year. And I ended up being the only freshman to play as a true freshman that year. And I wasn't the most highly sought after guy in that class, but all I did was roll my sleeves up and work my tail off, and I ended up carving a role for myself. But that all started at the brink of wanting to go home at the beginning of camp. And we all get there.
Yeah.
And but it did prepare me, man. I met some amazing friends and teammates. We joke around a lot. I still have a text message where we got a chain with the whole D-line room that I had my senior year. And so it's like we pick up where we left off at. And, I think that's special, because a lot of places you don't have that and you lose touch. But we've each, we share pictures of our kids in there. We share different things that we're proud of from our kids. We check in on one another. And, it's a true brotherhood. It's a frat that Derek Thomas started, and you call it, you don't really have to join a fraternity when you play at Alabama, because Derek Thomas started a fraternity on the football team, and it's called B Psi Phi. And one of the neatest things that I've seen is having D'Amico Ryans, the head coach of the Texans, when he drafted Will Anderson. And Will Anderson, one of the first things he says to him is B Psi Phi. And the first thing D'Amico says back is for life, because that's what we say, B Psi Phi for life. So it's one of those things that you have to go there to know about. That brotherhood is real. And, man, I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a blessing to be a part of it and become a captain there. And, be able to be what my wife calls the construction era, because I played for all 4 head coaches that were right before Coach Saban. And, when he got there, of course, he took it to another level and became arguably the greatest of all time. But we had a chance when I was there that could have, not saying it would have crippled the program, but it could have made it harder to do as soon as he did it. But we didn't have a single guy that came. We had one guy that came in with Coach Franchione that decided to leave. With the transfer portal being open and everything now, that's hard to believe when you go through so many coaching changes and you're wondering, man, is he going to bring in his own guys? Am I going to be one of his guys? Those are thoughts that goes through a young man's head. And all we did was hold the rope. Everybody gripped tighter and held what they had. And believed in each other and just fought together, and we stayed together, and I thought that was special. So it allowed that foundation to be so that Coach Saban could come in and do what he did there, man. And I just think it's a great program.
We're going to talk more in depth about this at the end when we talk legacy, Todd. But this is the time, correct me if I'm wrong, where your spirit moves within you and you are a man of, you're a poet. And I think you end up writing The Bama Way. Is that correct?
I did. I wrote that motivational poem, and it was Coach Saban's, I think, second year there, and he had a lot of different guys from different states there, and he wanted to try to capture and find somebody who could articulate what the Bama Way was, how they do things, and I put that together. Coach Roach, who is there as the D-line coach now, he was in the weight room working, and he called me, and it was like a short turnaround. He called me at like 11:15 p.m. and said he needed it by 6:30 and 8 a.m. And I'm at Oxford High School as a strength coach and D-line coach there at the time, and working with Coach Graham and Coach Gross them. And man, I turn it around quick and I take it down there and hand deliver it. So I got in my car that morning. If I'm leaving from Oxford, that's a 2-hour, 45-minute drive. And I take it down there and hand it to them. And again, it took off from there. It turned into a book, turned into a poster. And of course,
and it only took you a couple hours. Jeez.
And I actually wrote it in 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It flowed out of me naturally. And after that, like, I let my wife see it, and she was like, "Man, you just got to take this right now."
Now, for those who aren't from Alabama and maybe don't know, kind of, what are some of the things that are in the Bama Way?
Man, it's just the way you work, the way you attack every day. Just the process of thinking, the mindset, the finish, the fight. That's what you're capturing all of that. And, a lot of times, guys who didn't grow up watching that, they really don't know what they got into, and they learn their way, of course. But me, I grew up in that state and know about that. I know about what it takes to, play in that Iron Bowl and win that thing. And man, I just try to capture that for, everyone. And, I use my gifts that the Lord gave me. And that's one that I'll never forget writing.
That's awesome. Coach, tell us a little bit from your perspective now, because obviously you're a coach. What were some of your strengths as a player, and maybe some growth opportunities that you had as a player?
One of my biggest strengths as a player was I knew myself. I knew my strengths and weaknesses. I love Coach Paul Randolph. He was my position coach my last 2 years, and I had Stan Egan my first 2 years. And Coach Randolph, though, one thing that he'd do, he'd let me come in and rate myself in the room, and he'd want me to tell him, some things that maybe I needed to work on that somebody else was good at, and seeing if I could recognize that in myself. And so that really helped me grow as an evaluator. You have to be a realness and have a realness to you of that. Because some players, they get a heightened sense of themselves, and they kind of down other guys. And that wasn't who I was as a player. That's one thing I try to instill in my guys as well, just to get them to be able to recognize your strengths and what you're good at, but also what you need to work on. And, I got that from my time at Alabama, having those seeds planted in me to where Coach Randolph asked me those questions, man. And I've since applied that to my everyday coaching. And
that's really wise. That was really wise.
Yes, sir.
What are your highs, or what were some highs and lows from your time at Alabama?
So the highs and lows, man, we had, we went 10-3 my sophomore year, and we would have played in the SEC title game against Georgia. We had lost to Georgia earlier that year, and by last second field goal. I'll never forget it. we were looking to possibly win that game, and we let a guy return the kick. He returned it to plus territory, and all they needed to do from there is dink and doink us, and then get in position to call a timeout and kick a game-winning field goal. And that one hurt, but that was one of that. And my freshman year, we go down to Jordan Air Stadium, and man, nobody gives us a chance. We're having them, we've had a lot of adversity that nobody knows about within our own locker room. A lot of people going through a lot of different things, as many are on any team in any given moment. And but we go down there and we're picked to lose the game, and we win 31-7. And then another good experience that I had while there at Alabama, we playing against LSU in 2002 in Death Valley at night. And that's one of the tougher atmospheres in the country. And we go there and we beat them 31-0.
Wow.
And man, I'll just never forget those moments, man. I had one of my teammates the other day call me, and I'll pick a different one that I try to catch up with per week, a different former player and a different teammate that I've had over the time. And he told me this, and it was Gerald Dixon. Gerald was a couple of years older than me at Alabama, and he had all his classes with my wife and communications. And he told me this. He said, man, he calls me tackle because I had one speed. It was tackle football all the time. So he said tackle. He said, man, I know you made a lot of big plays for us, and some of them that aren't on the stat sheet as most D linemen do. He said, but I don't remember those plays. He said, the reason why I pick up when you call, or vice versa, I get excited to call you, or remember certain times a year to hit you up. He says, because you were a great teammate. And that's what this is all about.
Amen.
Even the greats, like even the greats, they're 2-3 generations away from nobody but the fanatics remembering them as a player. Somebody's always going to come along and take that spot, because, the era that we're in takes precedence, and that's always going to happen. But what people never forget is how you made them feel, how you showed up when nobody else did, and how you were there for them, how you treated them. And that's what I would say, man. I just hope to one day be in my teammates' foxhole, got on a short list where they look it up and they say, man, I'm in a tight spot. Man, I really need to talk to somebody. Let me dial him up.
Well, that's amazing.
Well said. So, Todd, as you're leaving college, how would you describe your spiritual journey at that point in your life?
Man, I tell you what, man, you go through a lot of changes at that time in your life, but you try to keep the main thing. You try to keep your foundation. And one thing my dad told me is don't compromise who you are. Like, you're going to have a lot of different experiences now. You're not under my roof anymore. I can call and check on you in your room, but you can easily go out now after you take that call from me. And, but that's not what got you where you are. What got you to where you are was me having 9 p.m. curfew, bedtime, me having all these chores for you to do, and structure. You got to keep your structure, and you got to keep your spiritual foundation, number one. And so that's what I would, attribute everything to, not compromising who you've been raised to be and who you were created to be. You always got to have that as the main thing, and never lose that. Hold on to it for dear life.
Well said.
So life after college, you get a chance with the Titans for 2 years. Tell us a little bit about your experience there, and then, how you transitioned into coaching and maybe some other options you were thinking about at the time.
Well, man, that was like a dream come true. As as for yourself and Coach Carter as well, man, you dream of one day getting to play on Sundays and be part of that team, man. And for me, my dad, I told you I had a 9 p.m. curfew. The only time and bedtime, the only time that I could stay up past that was on Monday Night Football when Steve Aaron McNair was on. So I'm staying up, and of course, from age 13 to 17, whenever those are just core memories of mine. Just we're up and he's on Monday Night Football, and he's either breaking a run for a score or making a play, and then you fast forward your life and you have your college career and you get the chance to sign free agent there with the Titans. Well, number one, the first thing that I tell you that I'm not going to do is be late and get cut the first day. So I got there day one, like 4 hours early up to the facility. And of course, they didn't know who I was. They let me in, and I give myself the tour. I walk around and I find where the D-line meeting room is. I find where the team meeting room is. I see where we eat. I see the best way to get to the practice field, and I go to the training room, and coming out of the training room into the locker room, first guy I meet is Steve Aaron McNair.
Wow.
And man, you're talking about just full circle moments, and he's so nice to me and shakes my hand and gives me a little word of advice, and that meant everything, that from that first day. And our first round pick that year was Pac-Man Jones, and Pac-Man was coached by Coach Randolph, my position coach at Alabama. He had coached at West Virginia before he came there. So I'm on the phone with my position coach before my first practice. I'm walking in the locker room on the phone, and he's giving me some tips and reminders, and I take them all. I mean, I'm really listening and locked in. He's like, "Yeah, man, you're gonna make the first impression today. You better make sure you just be who you've been." And Pac-Man's loud in the background in the locker room, and he said, "Who is that?" Coach Randolph on the phone. He said, "Who is that in that background?" He said, "Is that Pac?" I said, "Yeah, that's Pac-Man." He said, give him the phone. Give him the phone. I give him the phone, and he starts giving him these same tips and reminders too. And but it helped me bond with my teammates, just to find. It taught me to find some common ground. When you're going, because I like all the time that I was telling you about playing against Justin Tuck as one of my rivals. I never talked to him. I never talked. I felt like, man, I got to take his heart. I don't want to have to hold back. So I was having that same mentality. I'm in competitor mode. I need to go in here. And what that told me, whenever Coach Randolph was giving me tips and reminders, and he asked to speak to Pac-Man, he was my common ground with a teammate. And so going in a locker room, there's a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, come from all over, some from worse situations than others. And you find common ground though, whether that's what you're chasing. We all want to be the best, right? We all want to, hoist that trophy or whatever it is. If that's the common ground you find, build on that. But if you come from, the same place, or you have a mentor that mentored you both, build on that. And that's what I learned like day one in the NFL. Of course it's a business and things like that, as Coach, but there is still, common ground that you can find, man.
Yep.
And that's what I always just try to find.
Let me interrupt you for a moment. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to do this podcast with my son, Austin. For the last 10 years, Austin and I have had many intimate conversations on his drive home from work. Some of these father-son conversations have been lighthearted, while others have been very deep and emotional. Over the Christmas holidays, we decided to start a podcast called Awaken Kingdom Culture, where we invite our friends to share their life-changing stories with you our listeners. This podcast is done under our nonprofit, The Win Awakening, a sports ministry network for coaches, athletes, and those who lead. Our vision is to awaken hearts and minds, one story at a time. Our mission is to encourage coaches and athletes and those who lead to live from a place of victory, regardless of success, records, or the scoreboard. Our goal is to create safe environments where transparency and vulnerability are accepted, and value and worth are recognized in an atmosphere of love. Right in the middle of your mess, I'm reminded daily that the most important person of my day is the one in front of me, and that one matters, and that you are the one. WinAwakening.org is our website. I encourage you to visit our website where you can encounter the good news of who you are in Christ and what you already possess and how to live from it. There you'll find blogs, videos, Andrew's journal, and this podcast, Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. I'm thankful for all of you who have given and are a member of Team Win. Awaken Kingdom Culture is listener supported. And if you'd like to support us, you can go to winawakening.org. We are a nonprofit. I encourage you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And please like, share, and write a review on Spotify or YouTube. Okay, it's time to get back to the podcast.
So tell us about how your playing career prepared you as a coach.
Well, I tell you what, the playing career, it gives you instant credibility with your players. Like as far as being somebody who's done and been where they want to go. But the thing that you teach them through it is how you carry it. You be humble about it. There's always somebody that was better, somebody that played longer. So I've always carried humility with me in the way that I deliver that through my players. And a lot of times I'll start off teaching them through my own experiences, but I eventually get away from my own experiences and use the experiences of others that came before me. And then I listen to them. They actually have to crave that from me. Like they'll crave story time. They want to know something real about you, an experience that prepared you to be where you are. And I've got tons of stories, and some of them are funny, some of them are get your mind right, but they're all right there on deck for my players. And I try to pull them out at the most timely times. And that's coming around right now, fall camp. And and at different times during the season on that bye week, man, it gets to be a grind. And going into the SEC to where, you're gonna have to bring your A game every week. Like we've had to do it anyway. But I just remember what that was like as a player when I was at Alabama. Like at a place like Oklahoma and Alabama, you get everybody's best shot. And so if you're coming in there half stepping, man, somebody can have your number that day. And just it's just an even playing field, It's a very even playing field. This is where most of the NFL players come from. So you gotta bring it every day.
So we look back, Todd, at your first couple jobs, first 5, Talladega High School, Oxford High School, Idaho State, East Central, Jacksonville State. How did those jobs prepare you to go to Clemson?
Man, I tell you what, each one had its own purpose. At Talladega, I learned how to work with next to nothing. Like as far as the resources you have, the equipment that you have, you gotta make a way, and you gotta do more with less. As far as the equipment, but those hearts and those souls are still there to be poured into, and they don't want to hear that, man, I need this to be able to do this for you.
Mm.
You need to show them, how you can still get it done with just your faith, just your will, just your drive and your dedication. And that's what we did there. And we didn't win a lot of games, but man, we won a lot of hearts and souls that first year. Like I got so many guys from that team, and I was only there for 6 months. That because I got hired at Oxford right after that. But some of those guys like Tay Keefe, J.P. Porter, Austin Burks, he's a guy that coaching in North Alabama now as a defensive coordinator. And some of them are doing, what I was doing there, and they'll tell you, and I think this is the best compliment a coach can get. Coach, because of the impact you made on me, I wanted to make the same impact on others.
Yes.
And that means you've paid it forward. And, I have guys from that team that makes this a special thing. And then you go to the next job at Oxford High School, where we had, good success there. We went to the playoffs every year there, and we went further sometimes than, in our third year there, we went to the third round of the playoffs. But the impacts made were well beyond the field. And, I started a camp as I ended my time at Talladega. And some of those guys, of course, they came to the camp. And then at Oxford, same thing. I actually started a camp where I had guys travel with me to every corner of the state to go pour into other people. And some of the same things we were using it right there in Oxford and Talladega, Alabama. And, those times, man, of just investment in their lives, you look and you see a lot of those guys playing in the NFL. You see a lot of those guys into coaching now. You see a lot of those guys just in the real world now applying what we taught them in their families. And, man, still having a relationship with them because it was real. You try to pour into them and you show them, the way that you do things. How you do anything is how you do everything. What I'm teaching my players is what I'm trying to instill in my son and my daughter. The discipline, the hard work, the tough love at times. My kids, just like you, Austin. You probably, when you were growing up, you didn't like that tough love, but you needed that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It. And so I try to give it to them in doses of realness, man, to where. Look at and when I'm giving tough love, sometimes it's one-on-one over here with my arm around them. All right, but I'm being as direct as possible, and I'm trying to make sure that they understand, like, what matters is CPR, and CPR is your choice after this. All right, what are you going to choose to do? You're gonna let it break you, or you're gonna let it build you, and hopefully it's build. And then, the preparation after that, and then the response. Like let's prepare so that we don't make this same mistake, and then let's respond to the mistake that we made. And that's been something that I've just tried to instill in all my players, and that I try to use with my family as well.
Awesome.
One of the things, Todd, we talk about. Austin and I, we started this ministry is helping guys think through what does it look like to be a kingdom coach? And we define kingdom as Christ-centered dominion in all realms of life. And you've hit on a lot of these things. The one you just said is, the power of touch in a coach. Sometimes words aren't needed, but that arm around a player saying, I'm with you here. I'm in this situation with you. Or maybe it is a word. We had Dick Vermeil on here a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how as a high school player, he was planning on leaving high school and go to work for his dad as a mechanic. And it was a high school coach that said to him, I think you have a future in football. If that guy doesn't make that comment, Dick's not in the Hall of Fame. He's a mechanic with his dad. And so we talk about how words matter. How we as coaches see through a performance and recognize growth. There can be growth in a win or a loss.
That's right.
We talk about how we think transformationally. It's not a transaction. You do this, I'll do that. No, So a kingdom coach is someone that they're interested in relationship, and I see that in what you're talking about, and obviously I've witnessed that working with you for a short time. So here's a question for you: as you head over to Clemson, and those recruits that are coming in there and now at Oklahoma, and they look at you and they say, "Coach, if I come here, how will you make me better?" What would you say to them?
I'm gonna be there every step of the way, the good, bad, and the ugly. Like, I'm gonna be right there in the trenches with you. Like, and it ain't just you when you don't get it right. It's me too. It's a reflection of me. We're right there together. We're gonna fail together. We're gonna succeed together. And and we're gonna enjoy it all. Like, I just think that the most growth happens whenever the failure happens. You learn more about somebody, when they go through a tough time, and when everybody's chirping and they're saying this and that about that person, and you don't deviate. You stand on your morals, you stand on, your foundation and the things you believe in, and you stay centered on that. And man, a young man in those moments, that's when they truly know you believe in them, and that's when you get them to run through a brick wall for you. And man, I'll tell you this, like I should have started with this earlier when I was talking about my upbringing, but my PE teacher, Miss Merrill, she was the first one outside of my family to say she believed in me. You just reminded me that with the Coach Vermeil story, and man, I was into. I would revert to throwing hands on any misunderstanding at school. Like, if somebody talked about my mom, I was ready to fight. If somebody came at me wrong, I was ready to fight. And most teachers would just give me a paddling and send me on my way. She took time. She gave me my paddling. I got my 3 licks, which I deserved. But she took time to put her arm around me, and she said, "You can be anything you want." She's like, she said, "One day you're gonna have major success." She said, "I don't know if it's gonna be as a football player, a basketball player, or what it's gonna be, but you have a light inside of you. And
Wow.
you need to stop." She said, "You need to stop letting people smother it and push your buttons to make you do things to get you in trouble." And that stuck with me. And everywhere I've been, I've had her come to a game because of that, man. She's up on my wall. Like, I have a wall of pictures, and I try to have it of the different people that have impacted my life, so that whenever I first come home or before I leave the house, I can look at that wall of inspiration. And hers is right. My dad, I got a couple of my dad up there because at different times in my life, I shared one story with you guys earlier, and some of them are motivational and inspirational stories, and some of them are just times when he just showed up and didn't say anything, but was just there to hold me.
Presence.
His presence. And man, though, but that means everything. I look at that, and that's what I want to be to my players. And to everybody I come into contact with, if that's a mark you can leave, that, man, not only was he not only, could he always say the right things to get me going, but he was always there. And his presence made me better. That's what you want to be, man. If I can do anything in this coaching with the rest of my career, I'd say I want to impact my guys in such a way that one day I'm on their inspiration wall. Just a reminder, of being there for them and helping them through tough times, because it's something I'll never forget.
Well said. Let's jump to family. You've already mentioned her a couple times. Tell us about your wife and then your children.
Yes, sir. My wife, Tisa, I met her day one at Alabama. And I knew it. She didn't. I chased her for 2 years. And but I pursued her like a quarterback, and I knew she could tired of running. And I finally caught her. And man, you look up, we're now 17 years married. And we have 4 beautiful babies. And no matter how big or how old they get, they'll always be babies to me. Angel is our oldest, and Coach, Angel was 2 when we were
Yes.
there, and she's 13 now.
Oh my.
And so she is amazing, man. She's into volleyball right now, and then anything fashion. And man, she has a gift with words as well. She writes poetry.
Oh, great.
And then my son Josiah, he's a 9-year-old, and he's all over football right now. And he started off loving soccer, and he plays baseball as well. But he loves Justin Jefferson,
Oh yeah.
Minnesota Vikings receiver, and he's dead set on being either receiver or a DB. And so that's my little man. He's very competitive. And then I have twin daughters, Summer and Star, and they couldn't be more opposite than what they are. I got one of them's a spokesperson for the other one. One's very outspoken, one's quiet. And so Summer is very outspoken. And just the best example I can give of this is last night. You know, when they're around this age, you have plenty of nights when they get up and they come climb into bed with you. And they get to the kitchen, and I hear Summer. I don't hear Star. I don't think Star is even there. But she's like, Summer is speaking up for Star, and she's like, Star's scared. She don't want to, she's scared in her bed. She wants to come to your bed. Okay, spokesperson, but where's Star at? And Star said, I'm right here, little soft voice. Of course, they come on in, and but they are so, man, they've blessed our lives. I just remember going to the doctor and thinking we were pregnant with one, and doctor says baby A and baby B. And man, it changed our lives for the better, man. I would have it no different. Now we're 6 strong in the Bates household. And
there we go.
Man, yes, sir.
Austin can relate to that. He's got 6 too.
I do. I don't have twins, but I got 2 that function like twins a lot of times. So we definitely get the at nighttime. They're like, "Hey, can we come in your bed or whatever?" I'm like, "I guess."
Oh yeah. And they'll my wife, she'll kind of act like I can't handle them by myself, and like, are you sure you want Angel to go with you and be like an assistant? And I'm like, no, I got them all. I said I can take them all, and Angel can be a kid. I said I can handle them all. And you have to, like the twins, you better know who you're dealing with. Like, because the more outspoken one, Summer, she'll run off and she's not going to listen to you. You're gonna have to go get her. Star, the moment you tell her, hey, Star, stop. Star's gonna stop like you froze her. And so she'll be standing right where you told her to stop at. So, but it's been a blessing, man. And we every step of the way, it's very important to have somebody equally yoked and who understands what it means to be a coach's wife. And that means a lot of sacrifice from your family, and implementing others into your family, because your players become your family as well. And man, our kids, like, we're having our defensive linemen over. We just went out to eat with them last week, but we're having them over to the house, as we always do, to kick the season off on Monday tomorrow. So the kids are excited right now. If you could see them running around, when are they coming? And yes, we look forward to it.
That's awesome. So, Coach, how do you balance, having a family as big as yours and as big as mine, and this demanding profession that we live in and we work in, as far as being a coach? How have you learned to balance that?
You have to have balance, and man, I had, everywhere I've been, I've been very blessed to be in a great culture. Even when I was a young coach, being under Coach John Gross at Oxford High School, and being at East Central under your dad, Coach Karcher there, these were men that actually modeled what it looks like. Like, as an assistant, you think you have, a lot to do. These guys have, like, you got a position group. These guys have, 130 guys, 60, 70 guys, whatever the case may be. And you get to see them get up and have structure. okay, and carve out time. All right, this time is for family. This time is for, professional development. This time is for recruiting. And you really have to balance it that way to where there's a time and a place for everything. And family is most important. All right, family is most important. And, you know, I try to find a way to implement my family around my players as much as I can. And
Yeah.
the head coaches, Coach Venables, myself, Coach Venables for me, Coach Sweeney, they've had, family dinner nights to try to facilitate that.
Mm.
But you as a position coach, you have to, build a culture of that. You don't like if we just said we're having family dinner night and everybody's going to eat in the same room, the guys may just spread out and not be around you. No, if we're having family dinner night, my family's coming up. They're coming up to see you. We want to know you
Yep.
on another
Yeah.
level. And we're not fixing to talk about the first X and O. I don't want to talk about today's mistakes on the field.
Yeah.
We'll fix that later. What has to be right is that relationship. Can we get that like this? And
Mm-hmm.
and I want my players to see me interact with my family and how I talk to my son, because some of them don't grow up with that. They don't have a dad in the picture, to where they hear a man tell another man, I love you.
Yes.
And that's very important to see. It's one thing to tell them to treat women right. Okay, it's whole nother thing to show them what that looks like. And that's what it's all about. And whenever they come over to my house, I want them to be as comfortable as they can be. I want it to be a safe place for them. And
Yes.
that's built over time, to where I'm not going to bring up something that we said over here on the field and use it against you. No, sir. I'm going to know that you went through if you talk to me about something, and I'm going to use it to help me reach you. And
Mm.
I just want to use those times, man, the real time that you spend with your family, as time to also have your players around.
Awesome.
Well said. Well said, Todd. Well, we're going to go and finish our last part. We call it Talking Legacy. And I mentioned earlier about you being a poet. How would you describe the power of poetry and how Papa has spoken to you through it and how he has spoken through you to others using poetry, Todd?
Man, it's very powerful. Um, he'll use it with me. He'll give me a word, and a lot of times nobody else is up in my house when I get the word, and and it's sometimes 2 a.m., 3 a.m., sometimes right before I want to get up at 5, and I'll just start writing, but it'll come. I know that it's him giving me the words, and he's always done that. Even when I was a player, you know, and he just so happened to give me the confidence that I needed to share it with a teammate. In my later years at Alabama, I shared it with one guy. It was only a teammate that I ever shared it with. And
Yep.
and then as I grew as a man, and being more vulnerable, wanting to show and share my gifts, he helped develop me and put me around other men who were gifted in other things, and it helps show guys, your players, that it's okay not to just be one thing.
Yes.
And I love to share with you, because I don't know if I haven't ever shared with you the poem I've written called All In. And All In has 3 acronyms in it. And the first one is moment, mind on mission, eyes nailing target. The second
Wow.
acronym is quit, QUIT, quiet until it's time. And then the third acronym is nothing, no objectives too hard, I'll never give up. So the motivational poem goes like this: all in, mind on mission, eyes nailing target, playing my position, the hardest and the smartest, opportunities the largest, and I'm all about the harvest. You can try me or deny me, but I'm gonna eat regardless. I will not quit, I'm just quiet until it's time. I'm hungry for success, and my diet is the grind. No objectives too hard. I'll never give up. The tough get going when the going gets tough. From a pebble to a rock, now our level is the top. And we will never, ever stop until we have the game on lock. When adversity strikes, we stand tall, men. When you examine this family, you'll see everybody's all in.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. Is that
Awesome.
does that Does that have Dabo Sweeney stuff in there? It sounds like because he was all about all in and
yeah, we're all in as well. And like the poem is like the acronyms and everything. It just comes from something the Lord gave me. I shared it with the staff there. It was like my first staff meeting that I shared it with Dabo and his staff there. And but I wrote it and then I shared it with them and I carry it with me everywhere.
that's
That's
awesome.
awesome. That's
Yes, sir.
awesome.
That is a gift.
It sure is. So, Todd, when someone encounters Todd Bates, what do you want them to experience and how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as somebody that loved people, somebody that loved the Lord, and somebody that is a genuine, authentic, and sincere person, and somebody that made a mark on you that goes beyond just the surface. And how I want to be remembered is just as a man of God who done his best and served people and helped other people reach their best version.
Well said. Thank you.
It doesn't have to necessarily be 5 words, but this portion we usually say, describe in 5 words your spiritual journey up to now.
It's been ups, downs. It's been rewarding. It's been tough moments that have also built toughness. And I think that the Lord, man, is along the journey. It's not just gonna be, easy.
Yeah.
Easy is an acronym, and it stands for every adversity sharpens you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think about it, man. I know that those hard moments and those tough times, that the Lord is still right there with me.
Yeah.
And he's giving me something that I need. A lot of times when we don't get an opportunity that we think we deserve, we're not ready for it. And the Lord, just like Dad protects you,
yeah,
he's protecting you from a pothole. He's preparing you so that when it comes back around, you are ready.
Yeah.
Amen.
Awesome. Well, do you have a specific moment in your spiritual journey that is just special to you? Maybe a moment that it was just you and Papa alone, or something that maybe just rings a bell in your head when you think about your spiritual journey.
Man, there's so many. I share. I gave my life to Christ when I was 10 at vocational Bible school, and where I just got through taking my son. So ever since then, every summer that I get a chance to take my kids to be a part of a vocational Bible study school, I definitely do that. But I'll share this experience with you guys. I'm just finishing up at Jacksonville State, and me and my wife, we pray and we have a family meeting every year to close the year. And she doesn't let me wallow in self-pity of the last loss, because everybody, except one team, they're going to have that last game as a loss. And and we had lost in the playoff to Youngstown State, and they had Bo Pelini as the head coach, and they had 2 good running backs, and I felt like we didn't do what we were supposed to do. Like as coaches, we could have better prepared our players. So I took it really hard. And my wife, she gives me a 24-hour rule of any, like, I can wallow in that, I can talk about it around the house, all right, but I got to be moving on in 24 hours. and I'd stayed in that spot a little longer than she wanted. So we started our meeting early, and she helped get me back in line. And we were praying about like where we wanted to be. And she said that the Lord told her to, for us to be specific about our prayers and the things we were asking him for. Don't be ashamed to tell him exactly what you want. Because like you guys have said, that's Papa.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I know that you work camp at Alabama every year and you work at Clemson every year. Are you want? I know we're at Jacksonville State now, but do you want to be back at home in Alabama, and or do you want to be at Clemson? And I said, man, I think I'm being called to do something outside of what I'm used to. I said, I've been in both cultures. And I said, I think the Lord is speaking to my heart over here. And she said, so what do you want, Coach Saban or Coach Swinney? And I said, I didn't say anything at first. And then she asked me again. She was pushing me. And I said, Coach Swinney. So we started praying about that. And after we lost our game in the playoff in the second round to Youngstown State, later that year, Alabama played Clemson in the national title game. And of course, I'm watching the game as a Alabama alum. I'm pulling for my team at the time. And, Clemson finds a way to squeak it out and win and won 35-31 in that national title game. And Christian Wilkins is doing a split after the game, and they're kind of dancing on the field. And I'm picking at him for doing a split. And my wife said, remember what we prayed about. Don't be picking at him. He might be your player one day. And man, I tell you, about 2 weeks after we watched that game was when I got the call from Coach Swinney.
Wow.
And what I'll tell you about that is that the Lord is listening.
Yes.
If we have, and it doesn't happen like that all the time where it's such a short time frame. But right before Coach Swinney hired me, he told me this. He said, Todd, everywhere I looked this morning, I saw your name. And he said, I saw your name. I could only think about you for this position. His D-line coach, he had one D-line coach retire and one went to the NFL coaching. And of course, I stayed woke and I knew what was going on. So when he called me, I knew it could be about that. And but after he interviewed me and he was telling me that I'm gonna get hired, this is what he said. He said, your name was everywhere when I woke up this morning. And he said, your name was always on my short list, but it was at the bottom of my short list. And he said, God took you from the bottom to the top. And don't you ever forget.
Wow.
Great story.
That's
great
awesome.
Story.
You pray, be specific.
Yeah.
Well said. Yep. That's a great reminder for everybody. So the last thing we do before we close, Todd, is we give you a chance for any final words, something you might want to say to our listeners, and then Austin will share some words with you, and I'll close us up as well.
Man, I would just say, enjoy every step of your journey, even those steps when it seems like you're not on solid ground. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when it feels like the Lord may be placing earth underneath your foot, where it looks like you're walking and you're about to fall off a cliff. Have faith and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And even when it looks like you may not ever reach to where you aspire to be, just keep the faith, keep being who you were, who you were raised to be. Don't deviate and change up just because it didn't happen. Don't get upset with the Lord just because he ain't done it yet. I would say, man, just keep putting that one foot in front of the other and keep putting action behind what you say you believe. And the Lord will show up in ways that will exceed what he said he would do.
Awesome. Coach and Dad, I mean, like just sitting and listening, for me, my final thoughts are, one, we're blessed, Dad, just to continue to week after week get to talk to coaches or players. And what you realize is there's a lot of a lot of really, really good people out there. And Coach, you're one of those. And you have you can tell you got a great heart for people. You have a great perspective. I know for me, because in a lot of ways, God works like this in my life. I can tell that you really listen and you are in tune and you're hearing the Spirit. Because for me, yours is poetry. A lot of times I'll get up and write, but just like, it happens for me at the nighttime or early in the morning when everyone's asleep, and, just the ability to hear him and just write your thoughts of what you and him are spending time together. And I just know that's very special. And I know that God is using that skill that you wouldn't usually think are in coaches or whatever. But, what you find is we're more than just that one role that we play. We manifest the Father in many, many different ways. And I'm encouraged, Dad, just from, like I said, it's like, we talked the other day, Coach Bates, about how, God's used a lot of different groups of people to share his kingdom and to reveal him. We talked about patriarchs. We've talked about leaders such as Moses and Joshua. We've talked about judges and prophets and kings and eventually disciples. And although we all probably fall into disciples, I said in the podcast, why couldn't it be coaches? Why can't coaches be that next group? And I just think that we have such an awesome opportunity. You at Oklahoma, me where I'm at, Dad where he's at, and all these coaches across the country that we're seeing have such beautiful hearts and care for people. Why can't we step into that role, and as we're doing something that we love and are passionate about, just let him manifest himself through us to make himself known and to change this culture that we live in. And that's what the Spirit put on as I listened to you, Coach, because you just got such a wonderful heart. And I know you've always been so kind to me and my dad, and we're just grateful for you, Coach.
Amen, man. I'm grateful for you guys. And I tell you again, man, Coach Culture, I'm forever indebted, man. Just the things that you instilled in me when I was, just getting started. I just remember this. We were getting ready to go out and play in a game. And Coach Culture walked up behind me and he said, Todd Bates. He said, you're a big time coach, Todd Bates. He said, I don't know when it's going to happen, but you're a big time coach. And you said that to me, Coach. And, I just really thank you for believing in me and giving me a shot whenever I was out of coaching, man, and just being a great example of things that I still use to this day. Above the line thinking, Coach.
Thank you, Todd. Those are kind words. And, I was listening to Austin and obviously listening to your final words. And the word that came to my mind is shepherd. And I see you as a shepherd, Todd. Someone that fathers his players, just as Papa fathered us, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And so I just want to encourage you as you continue to walk your journey, heading into another season, raising your 4 beautiful children, you and your wife, is just continue to shepherd those people in the love of the Father, in the love of the Son, in the workings of the Spirit within. And I think you'll continue to see these miraculous things happen that even are the mundane things of life. They're miracles as we look at each other and look at people. And then I'm just grateful for the time I had, 6 months. I can remember the day we were standing out in front of Brackenwood Gym and you're like, Coach, we're getting ready to go on a recruiting trip. And you're like, Coach, I got something to tell you. I got a job offer. And I was like, oh, great, Todd. I'm happy for you. But meanwhile, I was crying inside. But no, it's been fun to follow you. I think that this just opinion someday we're going to see as a head football coach, because once again, you do it the right way and you care about people. So we just, Austin, I thank you for allowing us to share your story with our listeners today at Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time.